So, uh, trying to see how to word this next question. I've been having a hard time working out polite ways to say things.
No. You don't have to worry about being polite with me, man. I'm not PC. I'm not any of that. Like, just say whatever's on your mind.
Okay. Well, do you find that... Well, okay, well, first let me ask you. In your personal life, who are your primary partners? Are you bisexual or gay or...
I consider myself a sexual person. Not,
Okay.
I don't really. I'm really sort of anti-label in the sense that, you know, even though I do label myself a man, my sexuality is super open, and I'm really about people. I'm attracted to people. I'm not really attracted to gender, though I do have sex with men and I have sex with women, so it's not really an issue. I'm married to a woman, and I've been married to her for 10 years, and she's a biological woman. But that said, we have a BDSM lifestyle, and we play with men and women, and we both experiment on both of those levels. Not experiment, we enjoy having sex with, both men and women. So I'm very open to that. It's more about the person and the energy than it is about what's between your legs for me.
Okay. And off that question, it was the next question, and this is from a reader who decided to remain anonymous. And he wants to know if you find it difficult or found it difficult to find partners post-surgery.
Oh, post-surgery? No, I was a pig, and I got girls would flock to me. Like, I even have a tattoo right here. Where is it? I don't know if you can see it, but let me see. It's a Playboy tattoo. I was a real playboy before my transition. I was hardcore, and after my transition, like, I've never had a problem finding sex partners ever. I don't even when I started seeking men out to have sex with me as a man with a vagina. It was never really an issue. What was hard for me was to find talent to shoot movies with me in the beginning. That was more difficult than anything I've ever, because people didn't want to have sex with me on camera. They didn't want people to see them having sex. They didn't want to be judged. It was very difficult. I had to utilize my wife and my friends and, whatever I could do to get somebody on camera was really difficult. And it's funny because now I daily get emails from people wanting to be in my movies that, would have never considered doing my movie 10 years ago. It's kind of funny.
Okay. Again, trying to figure out how to word it. Was there ever an issue where you were having difficulty finding people who would treat you like a human instead of like a fetish? That is what that sentiment is what the person that I interviewed before said that he has a problem with, is finding people who like him because of him instead of like him because he's trans.
Well, I mean, that sort of comes with the package. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't have an issue with being fetishized. You know what? If that's what turns you on, that's what turns you on. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a fine line there. I think, like, it's sort of like some people are into feet. Hey, if they're gonna have sex with you because they're into your feet, is that fetishizing you? Well, I guess it is. But if you're into it and it feels good, then what's the big deal? Yes, there is a lot of men right now who are into guys like us because it's sort of like, I guess, a fetish in a way. But I don't know. I think he's taking it too personal. It's not about him, really. It's about the other guy. So if you're having a good time and you find guys who are into you, hey, you should just, like, have a good time with it and not sort of pick it apart, I guess, is what I'm gonna say. It's just sex.
That is very true. It is just sex. So, and these are a set of questions that I asked the last interview as well. I wanted to get a sense of where your idea of masculinity comes from. Like, you mentioned Tom of Finland before.
Right.
But who were like people say in your real life that influenced your ideals of masculinity?
Yes, I grew up with a very masculine father. Like, he was a professional football player. Like, he's the ultimate man's man. Like, my father was definitely a huge influence on my masculinity. I mean, I grew up in a very sort of, middle class, like, Irish household where, the man is the man of the household and my mom cooks dinner and, my dad goes to work and, it's very traditional man and woman, household. So I think, like, for sure my dad definitely influenced my masculinity, with no doubt. I see lots of traits of my dad, good and bad. My dad can be quite an asshole at times. And not in a, is there a good way? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Sort of like, I have a great relationship with my parents now, but for many years I did not have a good relationship. And my dad was a total asshole. But I picked up some great traits, masculine traits from my dad, I think. Good masculine qualities. So that definitely, I think, was probably my biggest masculine influence growing up. I grew up with two sisters. I didn't have any brothers. I mean, he was like the man influence in my life.
Now, this is a common occurrence. You mentioned your childhood. Would you say that you were, I would say, gender atypical as a kid?
No. I had a lot of You mean atypical meaning like I fit in and all of that kind of stuff?
Well, from the research I've done, a lot of people say that they were, playing with boys' toys, and they never really felt comfortable living the girl life. Yeah. I just wanted to see if you felt that same disconnect.
Yes, I think pretty much all trans guys are going to ask that question too, and they're all going to say that. I grew up with G.I. Joe. My parents bought me G.I. Joe. They bought my sisters Barbie. Like, I think that's very interesting. I grew up playing Army. They were playing House. Like, I did all the I played with the boys on the street until I was 15 years old. Like, what 15-year-old girl plays with the 10-year-old boys on the street football? Like, I definitely grew up doing all those things, and I was a misfit. I didn't fit in at school. I didn't feel comfortable. I always was very shy, very withdrawn. My parents thought I had lots of problems because I barely spoke. I didn't do very good in school because I just never felt, especially when puberty hit. When puberty hit, which was late for me, it was like 16 I got my period and my breasts started growing. That's where all the trouble started for me. Prior to that, I sort of looked like a little boy, so everything was not so bad. But, when the boobs start growing and you becoming a woman and you're feeling like a man, like, the shit is going to hit the fan for sure.
When exactly did you realize that you weren't, just a masculine girl, but in fact you were a man?
That's a very good question. I could say that I always felt that way, but to be able to sort of verbalize that was always an issue. And I think I remember the first time I verbally said that was to a psychiatrist that my parents were sending me to after a suicide attempt that I did in high school. And I remember telling the psychiatrist, this is way back in the day, man. I think it might have been in the 70s or something. I said to my psychiatrist, I feel like a man. And he just flipped his lid. He was like, huh? He couldn't even, he was like, what? Like they were going to put me in a mental institution. They didn't even fucking get it. So at that point, I never said it again until, in my late 20s. Because I just got such a bad feedback from that. So I always sort of knew it, but I didn't know how to acknowledge it or to talk about it. It wasn't something, I could ever really talk about.
Okay. So it's safe to say you did not have a supportive family.
No, my family raised me like a boy until my puberty, and then everything was shitty after that, like just really bad, pretty much all the way up into my late 20s. My life sucked. drugs, alcohol, on the streets. I was homeless for years. I was prostituting on the streets. I mean, really, it's amazing that I'm sitting here talking to you. I really should be dead. I tried to commit suicide. It's phenomenal that I actually survived my horrible life, really.
What made you change?
Like I said earlier, I didn't have a choice. My choice was I was going to kill myself, or I was going to figure out what was wrong with me. And I saw a movie with a transsexual man in it, and that movie changed my life. And the psychiatrist I was seeing at the time didn't even know about sex change, surgery. Nobody could even talk to me about it. I had to figure it out all on my own. But when I realized I could no longer live as a woman, it just wasn't happening for me. I got sober, and when I got sober, like, my whole world opened up for me, and I could think and I could see, and then I realized, there was something majorly wrong with me, and it was my gender. My physical being was not fitting what I felt like.